Sorry I haven't posted anything recently. I've been trying to time this video perfectly with the 2019 Mr. Olympia because we're going to go back 40 years to the 1979 Mr. Olympia. But before we begin, I would like to cite my sources. If you check the description, it'll have a list of all the different magazines I used. Mostly it was Muscle Builder because, of course, it's IFBB sanctioned show. So, of course, their magazine is going to have the most information. And actually, I'm going to be citing quite a bit of information from this one article. I mean, it's like an expose by Bill Dobbins. All right, let's get this started. On to the show. The 1979 Mr. Olympia was held in Columbus, Ohio at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium. The promoters of this show, along with Joe Weider and the rest of the IFBB, was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Lorimer, and they had been running this competition alongside the Mr. Universe, also known as the World Championships, and the Mr. International title. But those are two great shows with so many great competitors that I'd rather cover it in another video instead of getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the Mr. Olympia. The man to beat was none other than Frank Zane, probably one of my favorite bodybuilders growing up, and still to this day. I mean, he's aesthetic, I think perfectly structured, but it's pretty interesting. I actually read an article written by Frank Zane himself, and he had a conversation with Joe Weider, and he said, if you're planning on winning the 79 Olympia, you must get bigger. So Frank knew he had to change some things up. He knew that aesthetics wasn't going to win it alone. So he actually had to start adopting more of a powerlifting, heavy-duty style, if you may, type of training regimen. And he actually reached out to a world champion powerlifter by the name of Doug Young. And they actually trained for a bit in the off-season. Zane wanted to reach about 195. And in the off-season, he was around 205, I believe, which is funny. It's not too heavy, but for a guy like that, he wasn't really used to carrying on that much weight. And from what I read, he held that up to about a month out and then started trimming down. But let's get to the competition. This is probably one of the best lineups I've ever seen. And as we go through all the competitors, I'm going to list their stats for the year leading up to the Olympia. But before we get to the lineup, I just want to explain the class category system that they had. I believe this was the last year, 1979 was the last year that they had classes. All previous years, they would have a lightweight and heavyweight, or otherwise known as under 200 and over 200 categories. And there would be a winner for each class, and then those two classes would duke it out. But this year, they actually did things a little bit differently. But I'll explain that when we get to the judging part of the episode. So starting with competitor number one, we have Danny Padilla, who placed 5th at the Best in the World competition. He also placed 3rd in the Florida Pro, 5th in the Pennsylvania Grand Prix, and 2nd at the Night of Champions, probably his best show of the whole entire year. Second, we have Boyer Coe, who was pretty active in the 1979 season. He placed 5th at the Best in the World competition, 4th at the Florida Pro, 5th at the Pittsburgh Pro. The Night of Champions, he placed 4th. The Pennsylvania Grand Prix, he placed 5th. The Canada Cup, he got 3rd. And the Diamond Cup, also held in Canada, he got 3rd. Our third competitor was Chris Dickerson, who actually placed 1st at the Canada Cup and 2nd in the Diamond Cup. Competitor number 4, the master poser himself, Ed Corney. Unfortunately, he didn't have the best season, so some of these are, he didn't place in, so I'm only going to list off the ones that he actually placed. The Florida Pro, he got 7th. Night of Champions, 8th. And the Pittsburgh Pro, he placed 8th as well. Okay, competitor number 5, Robby Robinson, who had a complete opposite year. He had a phenomenal year. He placed 1st at Best in the World, The Florida Pro, he got second. Pittsburgh Pro, he got first. Night of Champions first. And the Canada Cup, he was fourth. Number 6, Tom Platz. Wasn't really active throughout the year. I couldn't find any information on any contest. I might have missed something, but as far as I can tell, he only trained for the Mr. Olympia competition. Competitor number 7 was Albert Beckles, who didn't do much throughout the 79 year. He placed third in Best in the World and third again at the Pennsylvania Grand Prix. Competitor number 8 is Carlos Rodriguez, another guy who didn't really do much throughout 79. He placed 5th at the Diamond Cup in Canada. Number 9, none other than the reigning Mr. Olympia himself, Frank Zane. He was pretty much inactive the whole year, just training solely for the Mr. Olympia. And finally, number 10, in the lightweight category, we have Steve Davis, who unfortunately didn't have a good year, only competing at the Canada Cup and not placing. Okay, on to the over 200 class, otherwise known as the heavyweights. Number 11, we have Roger Walker from Australia, and he was pretty inactive throughout the 79 year. It seemed like he trained solely for this show. Competitor number 12 was Bob Birdsong, and he hadn't been seen in a while, I think since 1975, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but not a lot of the people knew him. He hadn't competed throughout the whole entire year, so people were surprised at his presence. Competitor number 13 was none other than Mike Mentzer, a crowd favorite. He had a pretty good year leading up to the Olympia. He had placed second at the Canada Cup, third at the Night of Champions, Pittsburgh Pro second, and he won the Florida Pro. Competitor number 14 was Dennis Tinerino, who had placed 4th at Best in the World, 6th at the Canada Cup, 4th at the Diamond Cup, and the same placing at the Pennsylvania Grand Prix. And finally, we have competitor number 15, Roy Callender, who had a pretty decent 79 season. He placed second at Best in the World, first at the Diamond Cup, 6th at the Florida Pro, 2nd at the Pennsylvania Grand Prix, 4th at the Pittsburgh Pro, and he did not place at the Canada Cup. All right, now that we've listed all the competitors, let's go ahead to the weigh-ins. And I actually thought this was a pretty interesting part of the whole show because there was kind of a psych-out thing going, or at least that's what Bill Dobbins described. The weigh-ins were held in front of a crowd that consisted of fans, judges, journalists, and it actually ended up making a lot of the competitors feel uncomfortable to the point that they didn't want to strip down out of their tracksuits. So there was kind of a delay going on that nobody wanted to go first. Nobody wanted to be the first one without a pump to be seen. And actually, believe it or not, the first person to do it was Frank Zane. And it happened so fast that nobody even realized that he was already walking out of the room with his tracksuit back on. But then eventually everyone got comfortable and started weighing in one after the other. Okay, now we're going to get to prejudging, but before we do, I kind of want to explain how the judging scoring system worked for the 79 Olympia. I think it was very unique because no show before or after, I think, did this. So I'm going to pretty much quote Oscar State and his rules. The prejudging will consist of 3 rounds. The contestants will be compared standing relaxed from 4 sides during the first round. In round 2, they will perform the 6 compulsory poses: front double biceps, front lat spread, side chest, rear double biceps, rear lat spread, and side chest from the other side. During these first 2 rounds, after all the competitors have been seen individually, the judges may bring them back in order to make direct comparisons. The 3rd round is free posing, each individual doing his own routine. Okay, so those are the rounds for prejudging. Now let's go into scoring. Any individual you feel is the best should be awarded 20 points in that round. You then continue to award points in descending order. If it is close between first and second place, you might award the next man 19. If the gap is greater, you could award him 18 or less. After we add up the scores, we throw out the highest and the lowest and then get the total. There are possible 100 points in each round. Okay, let's get to prejudging. But before we do, let's list our judges. We have Jacques Plomer from Belgium, Winston Roberts from Canada, Mali Alaouane from Lebanon, Franco Fassi from Italy, Albert Busick from Germany, Reg Park from South Africa, and Bill Pearl from the United States. Since I wasn't there for this competition, I feel like it wouldn't be genuine for me to give my opinions. Who am I to say anything? So I'm going to cite Bill Dobbins' article covering the whole entire event. He was there, and he actually goes in order of every competitor on how they looked. So here we go. Number 1, Danny Padilla. Not in shape, he knows it too. Smiles sheepishly, waves good-naturedly to his fans. I don't know, to me he looks great in these photos, but I guess you know what they say, you can't judge pictures. Number 2, we have Boyer Coe. Better than ever. Abs improved, but torso still lacking while standing relaxed. Competitor number 3, Chris Dickerson. Really good, much improved, still with those amazing calves. Okay, on to competitor number 4, Ed Corney. Fine for a man his age, but lacking for an Olympia. I kind of agree. I mean, he looks, really good, but he's definitely not the top 6. All right, competitor number 5, Robby Robinson. The shape is there, the great balance, but he is simply not in peak condition. A major disappointment. Number 6, Tom Platz. Still the tremendous legs. The upper body much improved, but I remember what Arnold had said about the width of his back. He's got great potential. All right, number 7, Albert Beckles. Much the same as before, very good, little change. Number 8, Carlos Rodriguez. Hardly a fault, yet no outstanding features either. Competitor number 9, Frank Zane. Perfection and more mass than ever. His competition will not come from among this group, except for perhaps Coe. And finally, number 10, Steve Davis. Lacks mass, appears out of place here. And I've got to agree, not a bad physique, but definitely not fit for the Olympia stage at this point. All right. On to the heavyweights now. I'm going to continue reading Bill Dobbins' assessment of the prejudging. Number 11, we have Roger Walker, and he wrote, big plenty of mass. With a little more international experience, look out. All right, on to competitor number 12, Bob Birdsong. After not competing since 1975, I was right. He didn't look bad. But it's too early in his comeback for him to be competitive in an Olympia. Number 13, Mike Mentzer, Mr. Heavy Duty himself. Almost shockingly good. I don't know how to take that. I almost feel like that's not the best compliment. But, I mean, you guys can see it. He's definitely the guy gunning for first. Number 14, Dennis Tinerino. A pleasant surprise, enormous improvement, and definitely in the running. And finally, number 15, Roy Callender. Disappointment. What he might have done here without an injury. A man to be watched in the future. So yeah, he was kind of going to this competition with a handicap. After prejudging, it's pretty clear that the class winners are Frank Zane and Mike Mentzer. Mentzer looked so good in the prejudging that he had 2 iconic names in the bodybuilding industry praising him. First one being Serge Nubret, who actually says, Mike is better, but Zane is the champion. We shall see. And Jim Mannion said, if Mentzer doesn't win, it's a crime. So it looked like a lot of people were pulling for Mentzer to win this. All right, on to the night show. After the Mr. International concluded, the audience was treated to two guest posers, and the first one was a very beautiful one, and that was female bodybuilder Lisa Lyon. And the reason she had been in Columbus was to help Christine Zane promote women's bodybuilding in IFBB and the sanction of future shows to come. And the second guest poser, and unfortunately I don't have any pictures from the event, was the late, great Franco Columbu. From what Bill Dobbins wrote in the Muscle Builder article, Franco looked great, especially for enduring that awful injury in the 1977 World's Strongest Man. And anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, just YouTube it, go look it up. It's pretty crazy. I can't believe the guy was able to walk again, let alone continue to bodybuild. When the night show began, it was a little bit different than people were used to. Usually there was a lightweight winner and a heavyweight winner, and then the judging would be between those two. And then you'd have an overall champion. But this time, they had the top 6 highest scoring competitors posed down against each other. And to make things even more confusing, here's the way the scoring works. Everything that we had in the beginning is thrown out the window, not the score, just the scoring style. So now the way the scoring works is only first place votes count towards your total score. So if 3 of the 7 judges vote first place and then the rest were like second, third, fourth, you would only count those 3 ones and then add that to your score. So you only get 3. Okay, let's get to the final pose down. We have the top 6, and that was Boyer Coe, Robby Robinson, Frank Zane, Dennis Tinerino, Mike Mentzer, and Chris Dickerson. And all of them looked great. But from what I read, a lot of people smoothed out, especially Mentzer. The only person really holding on to their shape and condition was Zane. Mentzer had apparently blown up. He looked much softer. But I was actually really surprised with Boyer Coe. I feel like he was definitely in there till the end. All right, let's go to the scorecard. Coming in at number 6 was Chris Dickerson. 5th place was Dennis Tinerino. 4th place, Robby Robinson. 3rd place was Boyer Coe. And 2nd place was Mike Mentzer. Frank Zane won his 3rd and final title.